Within our world exists everything you have ever known, loved, and have yet to experience. Earth is a vast realm filled with wonders beyond imagination, concealed beneath the seemingly infinite expanse that is our universe. For many, home is defined by the presence of family, and for others, it's the place where they rest their head at night. It's within these spaces that our children will grow, nurtured to live meaningful and generous lives. Years from now, your descendants will learn about your history, lineage, race, and religion, ethnicity, and culture, everything that encompasses your existence. They'll come to understand your struggles in the past, ensuring that they can forge a better future. They'll surpass your achievements, learning to appreciate all that life has to offer. They'll discover innovative ways to enhance, secure, and liberate life. Life is a precious gift. Unfortunately, this is all meaningless. Once vibrant homes filled with families and pets now stand as hollow shells of their former selves. Gone are the long round dinner tables adorned with food and surrounded by chairs and the tapestries that embellish the walls. The neatly organized seasonal clothing and closets. Each room once thoughtfully arranged is now a mere echo of functionality, reduced to mere remnants of a stranger's past. These vestiges have been repurposed to facilitate our daily lives, yet life feels stale, dry, and soulless. In that moment of stark realization, the essence of living fades. Life reveals its cruelty and unfairness, culminating in an apocalyptic sense of despair. The post-apocalyptic genre offers a fascinating avenue for exploration, brimming with opportunities to convey profound messages regarding humanity, morality, hope, and ultimately violence. Writers within this genre seek to not only articulate their perspectives on these themes, but also to engage and invoke strong emotions from their audience. These narratives are crafted to reveal deeper truths while simultaneously entertaining. They possess the power to provoke tears or instill fear, serving as a captivating form of escapism for the audience. Significant foresight and thorough world building to ensure that characters remain engaging. Without a well-developed environment that embodies the atmosphere and tone of the narrative, the undead could easily devolve into a mundane adversary. In scenarios where an outbreak results in a society devoid of order, law, or effective communication, the emergence of a power vacuum becomes a critical theme. As societal structures crumble, it's natural for groups to vie for control, positioning themselves as the self-proclaimed authorities. This often occurs when the government becomes incapacitated, goes MIA, or turns against its citizens. To sustain their control, the new faction must confront rival groups that pose a threat to its stability. This dynamic is evident in The Walking Dead, where conflicts arise between Rick's groups and the other communities such as Woodbury, Terminus, the Commonwealth, and Alexandria. These confrontations create primary tension in the narrative, aside from the routine struggle for survival against the undead, which can become monotonous. As the initial shock value diminishes, both characters and audiences risk becoming desensitized to the violence depicted. The primary threats in The Last of Us arise not from the infected, but from factions such as the Fireflies, WLF, Seraphites, and Rattlers. These groups represent a reflection of a darker aspect of humanity that persists. What heightens the sense of menace and tragedy is the ease with which they manipulate others, providing innocence with a justifiable reason for acts of murder and plunder. In a lawless civilization, rationale becomes starkly clear. Survival often necessitates violence. Prolonged exposure to a superficial enemy can cause you to become the enemy. In the early stages, society functions normally. People lead their quotidian lives, but all it takes is a single catastrophic event for reality to sink in and radicalize the common man, leaving behind familiarity for instinct. Some strive to retain their humanity by exhibiting generosity, choosing to assist others in times of need over abandoning the vulnerable and unfortunate. But it becomes evident that our moral compass can shift dramatically in fight or flight situations, where we can't predict our true reactions until we're faced with those circumstances. In times of crisis, we're expected to unite and transform adversity into resilience while safeguarding one another. Yet, as time progresses, the essence of human morality could become obscured, revealing unsettling truths about our own neighbors. In societal collapse, the individuals we once regarded as virtuous may reveal darker inclinations. Those we've known for years to be good people may resort to ruthless self-preservation. The most alarming transformation occurs when these familiar faces, driven by that desperation, betray their former selves. And if you make a misstep around them, they'll deceive you, they'll turn against you, and they'll leave you to witness the suffering of those you care about as a consequence of their actions. Some try to remain good, but eventually they succumb to their savage nature and become the very thing they swore they'd never be. They'll molest, torture, imprison, and starve you. So much to the point you wish you would have just died. And it's tragic, frankly, to think about how the true enemy of mankind in the crisis is not the infected, but rather your own people and yourself. Behind the easiest smiles or the heaviest souls. The Governor in The Walking Dead and David in The Last of Us are perfect examples of people we see in our daily lives. They're not any different, just more influential. And that leads back into my point about a power vacuum. When people became desperate and scared, they trusted the governor because he had the ideas and the plans, and he carried himself well enough to deceive many who met him. You don't really know his motives because he puts up a mask. No one knew that he kept his daughter as a walker and he held fight clubs. And in a situation like this, when you're living in the apocalypse, taking teenagers to the front lines is not a terrible idea. They're younger, they're smaller, and they're more likely to be able to manipulate their way in and out of situations, to tug on the emotional side of your enemy. And not to mention, you're lacking the manpower, so why not? In this ecosystem of live and die, fight or flight, that kind of twisted mindset and self-righteousness, it's null and void. He believed what he was doing was right. He fooled and killed and led innocent people into his battle because he wanted to be right and unrivaled. He doesn't have the official authority nor any special abilities, just a man with big words and demented thoughts. The thing is, everyone's kind of like that, are they not? In the apocalypse, the mentally ill become leaders. And I'm not talking about your everyday murderer. No, I mean those who are genuinely sick in the head, yet at the same time they know exactly what they're doing. Those are the ones to look out for because they're not only dangerous, but they're like a snake or a honey trap. They'll lure you in with something sweet, but then snap at you once you get too close. And they're beyond help. If a child believes walkers are people, you can't do much to make them think otherwise. At that age, they don't know what it means to lose consciousness and the permanence of death. Your words likely won't change their perspective. If anything, they'll grow more hostile and unpredictable. And eventually, they'll get themselves killed. There's nothing you can do about it. It's a grim reality to live in. You can heal a gun wound to the chest or even amputate an infected bite on your leg, but you can't help those who don't think they're wrong to begin with, and you shouldn't waste your time to do so. Children born in this era won't understand how to think as if they are civilized people with morals to uphold. You have to have a mentor and a guide, a parental figure who can teach them that. But then again, that leads back to whether the people who guide these children are in the right in the first place. It's all a mental thing. What good are societal morals and ethics when there is no society anymore? Darwinism, a brutal and savage upbringing that spoils the innocence of a child who is constantly faced with keeping their loved ones safe. And even if it means doing something morally questionable, they'll do what they have to, because there is no other option. Try not. Do or do not. There is no try. You will die if you don't. The way we see abandoned ruins from the past, the artifacts, relics, and art, all that gives our life a foundation will eventually be discarded as waste for those who can't remember or even fathom a time without its appreciation or intended functionality. The Colosseum in Rome, Italy is a prime example. Once, it was the grandest amphitheater with gladiatorial combat, demonstrating the Roman people's power and prestige. To them, it was a game. But now, a couple thousand years later, and the majority of the world would detest such a primitive and barbaric activity, at least on the surface. Still though, the Colosseum doesn't falter in its history because its immersive presence draws on the imagination of all who see it. We weren't there to experience it, but we do have history to explain it. Our current past would parallel with a post-apocalyptic past. And the same can be said about a baseball stadium in the post-apocalyptic world. Take Fallout 4, for example. Diamond City is a home for the people of the Commonwealth. They don't think of Red Sox, the New York Yankees, or the Mets, but what they do think of was the world before the end, and all of the stories that are passed down by word of mouth and books and audio logs, generational information dissemination. They would have little to no concept of what baseball is. The sports that we enjoy on television are simply lost games in time. Phenomena we speculate over about how it was formed will be a similar discourse that future civilization would have when they discuss a fallen Statue of Liberty. Nothing about US history would matter here. These worlds forget history because the only history that matters is how much ammo you remember to put in your bag before you left the last house you looted. In any case, the one thing that post-apocalyptic stories provide is a sense of appreciation. Without our technology and everyday menial distractions, along with trying to help our loved ones from being alive every day, we're able to take a step back and introspect ourselves. We're able to shut out our troubles to work a life where we all have the same job, and that's to stay alive. Some will go about it in different ways, but once you see people you once loved be taken away from you, as if it's some cruel joke by nature, it becomes more about preserving what little we have and making the most of it. You're not bound by checking social media or your bank account, and no one will care about diets if you lack food to begin with. And this is not even me trying to be funny, but there's a reason why you don't really see fat people in any of the post-apocalyptic genre, movies, games, shows, media. And if they are fat, it's because they live in a privileged, gated, heavily armed community. And that's just what the actors look like. Realistically speaking, if you weigh that much, you will not live long. And you're a burden, plain and simple. So no one would really care about your social media or how many likes your post will get because there is no internet. No one cares about the little argument you had with John Doe the day before because all of those things are irrelevant. You submit to your primal instincts, and figuratively, we all live in the same boat because now people have begun to soak in just what makes us human. The apocalypse strips away all of our menial lives and the superficiality of it and forces us to become one with reality. The reality is, communities will have to rebuild. The reality is, you'll never see your best friends again. Reality is, no one stays the good guy forever. A father can become the man who single-handedly dooms all of humanity by choosing to save the girl he traveled across the country to protect, versus choosing all potential lives for just one. You can't blame a man for wanting to keep the one thing he has going for him in his life, living 20 plus years removed from genuine love and connection, and to now have something that he has worth fighting for. You lose her, but you gain the rest of humanity, potentially. But even the promise of potentiality isn't a great selling point, because why should I care about the rest of humanity if I don't get to have what I want in my life? Reality is, your child might have to kill their mother to save a newborn baby. Reality is, your child might have to kill you to survive. And it's about bridging your life into theirs so that they can one day bridge their lives into someone else's. And that's true survival. It's a chain, and that's how we've lived for generations as a species. Emotionally, people are left broken and alone, and some hide it, but that doesn't mean that they choose to be. We can take a look at Daryl Dixon, who is a prime example for a character who exemplifies the pinnacle of a broken and alone person in the world. He has lost all of his family, he has no children of his own, but he lives for someone else's children. And that's my point. All of his life, he's had to look out for himself. And he's never got to experience the simple wonders of his own life until it's time to live for someone else's. No goals, no fond memories without a painful death or a violent action to be talked about. You had Carol and Beth, who are two characters that could break his walls and show you that you can't survive on your own. And so this transformed Daryl into someone who can take charge of the initiative to search for Sophia more than anyone, to the point he suffered from being stabbed and shot because of it. You'd think that Daryl would be the kind of guy who hates kids, yet he cares about Judith. Despite being on the entire opposite side of the spectrum, Beth was able to break down his walls most and tell him exactly what he needed to hear, and tell the audience also the kind of person that he is. And I think their relationship is a little underappreciated because that was truly the turning point in his character, where he lived for others. We take greater appreciation for what we never thought we would ever appreciate. It allows for people to recognize what another person can contribute. Daryl doesn't need someone who is hurt as him, he needs someone to give him hope and cheer. And Beth didn't need someone who was naive, she needed someone to make her stronger. There is that relationship of compensation and benefit, push and pull. If everyone was a similar character and a similar personality, no one would ever really survive. I mean, they would have a great hive mindset, but we see where that leads. Be allowed to experience a different point of view is what helps people evolve. They complement each other to a point where rapport creates that last man standing. And he is the last man standing. In a show like The Walking Dead, characters die all of the time. It reflects the grim reality of their life as well as the textbook shock value. So often that you eventually realize that it's just routine. You become desensitized to it. His greatest strength isn't his sharpshooting, it's his compassion. And sometimes loneliness kills you faster than any disease or wound. Just surviving isn't enough. It's supposed to be the strong who protect the fragile, but what happens when the fragile are all gone and the strong are left to fend for themselves? We all know what happens when strong people with power are the only ones left to fight, and it doesn't end well. There's nothing left to protect and hope for. In this world, you need something, someone to live and fight and hope for. You need purpose. In The Walking Dead Telltale, Lee had Clementine. Clementine had AJ. In The Last of Us, Joel had Ellie. Then Ellie had Dina and JJ. Abby had her father, and then she had Owen and Lev. In my opinion, survival isn't about fighting for shelter or weapons or food. It's about fighting for something you care about on an emotional level. Food is eaten, weapons are broken, and shelter is raided. Through it all, you only fight for the things to fight for what truly keeps you going. And if you don't have that someone or something, you have nothing to live for. This goes back to my point on the stories trying to show readers what it means to treasure what we have. Without some preservation of the past, a better future can't be formed. Our attachments give us perspective. Characters could lose everything they care for at a moment's notice, and you can't be prepared for everything. That's why it's important to be able to relate and attach ourselves to these characters, because they live in a fantasy we so often dream about being in. And that's the thrill that many feel is missing from our lives. If a character is just like us, we can project onto them, juxtapose their development with our own probable journey. Many people can claim to relate to Clementine having a good man as a father figure who always tried to do what he thought was best, even if it meant sacrificing himself and making mistakes along the way. Her bond with Lee solidified the path of how she would raise AJ. Too many good people risked their lives for her, so the least she could do was raise a young man in this cruel world of despondency. But time and time again, she learns the hard way it's not easy, and she's going at it alone, so this has caused both of them to question what it's like to have a home, or friends, or whether or not their actions are justified. AJ killed Marlon. In another scenario's outcome, AJ killed 10, and AJ killed Lily. The lesson he's picked up from Clementine is a hard pill to swallow because he believes his actions are just. He was born in the thick of things. Clementine, at the very least, can remember a time when you had those morals and ethics evenly distributed without civilization. But there is no civilization. There is no more code of moral and ethics. Those are intangible things held on by a previous generation and era. A bygone era. To AJ, he's only trying to protect them from monsters, because that's all he knows. And the issue is, he's too young to fully comprehend the difference between a dangerous walker and a dangerous human. He sees them as the same. At the very least, a walker doesn't have those morals or codes of ethics, but a human does. And they can use that to get closer to you, closer than any walker ever could. You could be competent enough to keep yourself alive this long, where a walker doesn't present much of a threat to you, but the moment you meet someone new, you have to put yourself up on guard. Humans are far worse than infected, and AJ hasn't come to that conclusion yet. At such a young age, he's faced with the troubles of deciding what's okay and what's not. He has all of these lives at the palm of his hands and he doesn't even realize it. Clementine has taught AJ to make those hard decisions when he's discarding the weight of a situation and replacing a human life with a walker's as if there's no nuance or ambiguous argument to be made. And on top of that, he enjoyed it. But that delves more into a psychological nature versus nurture discourse, which I don't intend to get further into. When humans turn on one another, then the apocalypse occurs. Though it may seem beyond the horizon, it's inevitable. The integral humanism in us will never be extinguished, and that's mankind's biggest strength and weakness. With that being said, it won't always be a scary concept to ponder. It's okay to be scared, and it's okay to feel if you're going in one big cycle, fighting to just live one more day. If this were to ever happen in real life, it doesn't only mean humanity is weak and will die out in the end. Think of it as nature's way of reclaiming the earth. There was once an ice age, a prehistoric, middle, modern, contemporary, and then lastly, post-apocalyptic. Again, to be more of this realist here, there will be an apocalypse. It might be in the next 5 years if we enter nuclear war in winter, something will happen. And whether or not we choose to evolve or we choose to stay complacent until it's too late, we won't live long enough to know. But that's why it's important that I believe to recognize where we came from, where we are, and where we're going. And if you don't level up, you don't reach the end game. So to stay afloat in this world, you have to strive for something. A little optimism doesn't hurt. Although life is suffering, the whole point of the human condition is to strive against the grain, to submit to nature and submit to our natural instincts, which is to spite everything that tells us no. I think in the back of everyone's heads, there is some inclination to want something, and that very speck of instinct is what gives us our human condition and what gives us our identity. What would be the point of humanity if humanity's point wasn't to go up against the inevitable? In the face of what seems like the end, often resides in the sense of survival, allowing individuals to perceive themselves as the protagonists of their own stories, a jumpstart at their life so that they can keep going and bridging from you to them into someone else, and that eventually snowballs into something meaningful. There is a transfer of energy, and that energy is a collective effort of proving that humanity isn't ever truly dead. It's pointless, but we like when it's pointless because that pointlessness gives our lives purpose, and purpose keeps us moving, and we will always move so long as we breathe.